Hello, 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 everyone. Good evening. Good evening. Hey, Mara, number one girl. You number one. God bless. God bless. PG and chat mods. Much, much love. Hey, girl, much love to you. You know it. Nobody B. Right? Number two, girl. Number two. Hello, PG. Much love to you. Much love to you. Miss Justice 1111, number three tonight. There we go, girl. You make a believer out of me. You're making a believer out of me. There you go. Hey, girl. Much love and prayers to you. God bless. And Seeking Truth, you are number four. Hello, PG mods in chat. Much love and prayers. Hey, much love and prayers to you. God bless. Good to see you guys all in here tonight. Let's see who got. Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful, Mara. It's summer. Much love for summer. Amen. Hey, the legendary. That is beautiful, girl. There you are. And Deputy Sheriff, how you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you. There's Janet, Kathy, Lady Q, Caroline. How you doing, sweetie? Oh, that's beautiful. Hey, Stephanie, how you doing? Patty Ponytail. Hey, Lynn, don't let me forget you there. All day, 420. And Bridget, how you doing, sweetie? Good to see you. Much love for you, and may there be justice for Summer well soon. Amen. I'm sure hoping. I'm praying. I'm hoping and praying. Hey, M, how you doing, sweetie? Good to see you. D. All right. I got to the bottom. Small town girl. How you doing, sweetie? How you doing? Good to see everybody coming in here. I just stepped in tonight. I just wanted to go over some things. Last couple of days been quite a trip, right? It's been quite a trip over the last couple of days, you guys. Hey, Karen, good to see you. Tropicana, God bless. Says, hey, PG and everyone. I'm here listening. Won't be chattering. Oh, girl, we're going to send up prayers for you. God bless. I'm sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that. You take care. You take care of yourself. You hear me? We're going to be praying. We're going to be praying that God let you get on your feet real soon. Yes, we will. God be with you, sweetie. God be with you. We're going to definitely pray for you. But, yeah. It's been quite something over the last couple of days, right? Quite something. But, you know, it is what it is. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. But tonight, I wanted to step in and let's do it right? Let's do it right. You know, I was thinking the wells, Don wanted to, you know, emphasize on how much law enforcement was up there, you know. He said tearing apart the house. I don't think so. I know they were up there a lot. I know they were, to talk to Candace. They kept coming up to talk, not to tear the house apart. I think they came up there a couple of times to take stuff. They, you know, they heard through the grapevine, right? They heard through the grapevine that the Wells had, like electronic, that they didn't get something, you know, a phone or a laptop or a tablet or, you know, stuff that the Wells didn't have there for them to, that they didn't see, they missed. But, you know, through the boys, through, you know, corresponding with the boys or other people who affiliated themselves at that particular address, was giving out some information. And they did come back in, you know, to get a few things that, you know, that they didn't know existed, basically. So they came back to get them. And other than that, you know, I'm pretty sure that, you know, I'm pretty sure the one that, you know, got the place ransacked while Don was in jail, I'm pretty sure that was Cam and Allie. I mean, that's my opinion. That's my opinion. Because they were the ones spending the most time down in Don's basement, right? They were up there supposedly, you know, helping Candace, you know, and Don put up drywall and bringing in materials. And you know, they were in that basement quite a bit, you know, probably unattended at certain times. And, you know, and was looking around and obviously, you know, spotted the safe, right? Spotted the safe. And then when they got rolled from the hill, because it seemed like that happened right at the time they were getting rolled from the hill. And so that leads me to believe, you know, they were the ones that told on that particular, you know, to get that safe looked into. And law enforcement did, you know, they did do a DoorDash, right? They did do a DoorDash up there to get in that. But, you know, I heard that, you know, they, at that particular time, you know, I don't know how true it is. This is just, you know, grapevine talk. I heard at that time they found tons and tons and tons of flyers, you know, hidden somewhere, you know, covered up or hidden, like tons of flyers that people, you know, was printing, given to the wells to, you know, to put out and have put out and so forth and so on. And I heard that, you know, these flyers were somewhere stacked up and hidden. None of them have been given out. So, you know, like I said, I don't know how true that was. But I do know they was up there many times wanting to know about the timeline, pushing the timeline, you know, between the time the video was taken on the milk jugs and Summer supposedly went missing. They were, you know, really on Candace about that time frame, which would have been, because the video was taken 10 minutes from the house and they got back at the house around 3:15. So it would have been 3.5 hours, 3.5 hours of, you know, of time needing to be filled in. And I think, you know, and Candace wasn't too smart and neither was Donald, you know, and law enforcement kind of, you know, was like, you know, there's time missing. There's time. You said that you got home and brought in the groceries and fixed something to eat. You was, you know, you put on some laundry and you went to the door, seen your mother, so you went out and planted some flowers, washed your hands, got some candy, you know, then supposedly put Summer back into the house. And they were like, that's not 3.5 hours, you know, worth of stuff. Just, you know, there's time missing somewhere. And Candace kept saying, you know, and they're interrogating me, Donnie. I don't know. And they said, well, and Dawn would be like, you know, do you guys got to do this right now? And how about if I sit down with her? I'm trying to get her, you know, she can't remember right now. And, you know, she could remember everything. from, her eyes opening that morning all the way up to dropping Hunter off. But after dropping Hunter at Allison's, all of a sudden, Candace can't remember a thing. She all of a sudden got Alzheimer's, dementia, all the shit that causes you not to be able to remember. She developed it all at once after, Hunter supposedly got dropped off. And that's not normal. Because if you're in shock, you're not going to remember anything. I mean, you're not going to know, like if you're in shock, you're going to be so, distraught and everything. You're not going to remember which store you went to first, right? I mean, if your kid comes up missing, something that tragic happens that, the kid's gone. And, most parents couldn't remember. They couldn't remember if they went to, if they would be like, I do remember picking my mother up. I do remember her not having cigarettes, so we had to get her some. I do remember we had to go for her prescriptions, drop them off. Then we went to the swimming place. While we were waiting to pick the prescriptions back up. And then, basically, we got something to drink during that time, but hell, a normal person wouldn't remember if they got the drinks before, if they got them after. They probably, wouldn't remember going to the sick and smoke shop. Only the one would probably be sticking in their mind. There's a whole lot that they would be forgetting about the morning as well as the evening, right? Because that's how shock works. It fucks with your memory and you're just, you're just too wired. You don't want to think. You don't want to think. Your mind can't. It can't do it, because of the tragedy and everything. And you just don't want people talking, don't talk to me. Don't talk to me. Stop pushing me because, you're in the state of overwhelmness that, that's too, it's too much on your nervous system, your body, and you can't cope. So, and usually, you do have to, be able to, sometimes they even have to, give you, a doctor has to give you something to, kind of sedate you down, so that, your body can, work itself out before it goes into overdrive. But that wasn't a problem she was having because she could remember every single thing of the morning of June 15th, 2021. So your memory don't stop halfway through. It just don't do it. So with that being said, she was trying to cover up and hide. She was trying to cover up and hide whatever went down after, after the video was taken. She was trying to, she didn't want to talk about it. But law enforcement kept telling her, write it down. Okay, a lot of times, Donald was the one talking. Candace didn't talk at all. And Don would say, I've been working, and I haven't had time to sit down with her. We still got to make money, we still got bills. And when I get time, we're going to do that. And, and he was, hushing them off. So they leave. But that's, they did come, but they wasn't tearing the house up. They was just wanting to get at Candace and that timeline again and again and again. And, and they didn't ever get it. To this day, they haven't ever got it, from A to Z, what happened after the video was taken on the milk jugs. They haven't ever got that timeline. The only thing they was able to get was they got home, packed in the stuff, got something to eat. She put on some laundry. She saw her mom over there setting. She went out. They planted flowers, washed her hands, got something, some candy. And she supposedly at that point took Summer back to put her in the house. Well, all of us, I've got 4 kids too. I've got 4 children. And if, sometimes I'll pull up in the driveway, right? Me and my kids will pull up in the driveway, especially on the weekend. Because that's usually when, I go out and do my heavy shopping for the week. And basically, we pull in, and the kids sometimes, sometimes they help carry the groceries, and sometimes half of them disappear. I don't know where they went, but they went packing in groceries. But I do know that we'll pull up, and if it's, say it's 3 o'clock, we pull into the driveway. We went shopping after lunch to get everything. And we pull up around 3 o'clock. And I'm packing in the groceries, and then I got to put them away, and then, maybe I'll make everybody a snack, something, maybe a sandwich and some chips or something, well, hell, by the time I look at the clock, I came in at 3. By the time I look at that clock, it's already, 4 o'clock, or after. So, an hour done shot past me, just packing in the stuff, putting it away, making up sandwiches and stuff and chips and passing it out to the kids. And if I pick up all their plates, after we eat, and I pick up all their plates and throw them away and everything, well, it's already 4:30, heading to 5 o'clock. And, that's all we was able to get done in that time frame. So if I was to take my kids outside, and it's already 5, going on 5 o'clock, and I used to take them outside to, plant something, even just like a couple, shrubs, and we finally get them in the ground, right? We dig the holes, and you got to pour water down in there, and after you pour the water in there, you've got to set, take the shrubs out of the buckets, and you got to break these the potting soil on the bottom of them before you put them in, right? So that the roots can expand. And so there's a lot to it. So it's going to be after 5:30 by the time we got that done. And then washing our hands, and everything, you're going almost to 6 o'clock. And if you stopped in the garage or something, and and got some some candy or something, you know. Say grandma lives in the garage. Hell, I don't know. But, you know, you got some candy, and maybe you keep candy in your car. I do keep candy in my car. But, you know, maybe, you know, you guys went back to the garage, got some candy, you know, for the kid, because it wanted some candy out of the vehicle. Okay, you know, now you're looking at darn near 6 o'clock, and before you're putting the child into a house, which would have, you know, pretty much lined up. You know, where's the time missing? Where is their time missing from, Mr. Officers? Where is the time missing? But Candace wasn't smart enough, you know, she wasn't smart enough to, you know, sit down and really, you know, think about how long each one of these things take and the effort that you're putting into it. So, you know, because all of her stuff was bullshit, just like law enforcement figured it was. That's my opinion. So she kept trying to think of things she did, because at first she didn't even do no laundry. She added laundry into it. Now, I didn't even do no laundry, and I was going on 6 o'clock. I'm thinking, damn, Candace was even able to throw in some clothes and do some damn laundry. I'm not that good. I'm not even that good. You know, so law enforcement knew it was bullshit when she was, you know, telling them other stuff that, you know, that she did. They knew it was bullshit. There really wasn't no time missing. They just was, you know, wanting, here's how law enforcement works. If we come back and we keep questioning you, and the story keeps changing and more things start, you know, before you know it, you know, you're going to have something that's going to take you 5 hours to do, and you did it all in that 3.5. Right. You're lying, you know, and that's how they catch you up. And when she said she did laundry, threw the laundry in, and God knows what else she might have thrown in, I don't know. But, you know, trying to make up the time that they told her was missing, which there wasn't any. Yeah, because, you know, she told them she did laundry. There's no way in hell she could have done laundry, because if you throw clothes in the washer, well, it usually takes, you know, 25-30 minutes for those clothes to wash. And then, you know, you got to throw them in the dryer, and it takes, you know, 45 minutes to an hour for clothes to dry. So you're looking at an hour and a half right there. That's an hour and a half. That would have took her from 3 o'clock. Well, she didn't get there till 3:15. So that would have threw her, you know, into 4:15. And then, you know, I would have thrown her about 5 o'clock. I would have thrown her into, she wouldn't even been going out to plant flowers with Granny until like 5 o'clock. Just by doing laundry. And, you know, and then planting up the flowers, and, you know, that would have took probably, with cactuses, that's not going to be a quick job. That's going to take some time. And that big old barrel, you know, digging everything up and out and then, you know, those cactuses are very dangerous. So you have to, you know, be careful placing each and every one of them. So that's going to be another 30 to 45 minutes right there, at least 30 minutes, which is going to throw her up to 5:30. It's going to throw her up to 5:30 or more. And then, you know, they got to put the rocks in. She said Summer put all the rocks in there. And if I know a kid and a kid's putting, all these rocks and putting them around cactuses, it's also going to take some time, So even if, say, we gave her 30 minutes and she's at 5:30, well, and it's going to take Summer anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes to put those rocks inside of there and her little toy in there. So, you're going almost to 6 o'clock now, and you still haven't washed your hands. You still haven't, got no candy. So basically, washing your hands off the back of Don's truck, would have put you up at 6 o'clock. And then going into Grandma's camper to get candy would have put you in there after 6 o'clock. So Summer wouldn't have, at the time Summer would have came up missing, that's when law enforcement would have already been being called. You see what I'm saying? Donald would have got a phone call, and it would have been going on the time for law enforcement to get a phone call. So there, that was an overthrow. That was a big overthrow. Now let's add on carrying in the groceries, and let's add on, putting them away, and let's add on getting something to eat. Because that's going to be almost, an hour within itself. And Candace is doing laundry. That's an hour and a half on top of that. You're talking 2.5 hours. She hasn't even been outside yet. And then, like I said, the cactus planting and everything's going to be, no way they could have fit all of that. And law enforcement knows it. There's no way you could have fit all that in a 3.5 hour time span. Absolutely not. But, that's what they were seeking. That's what they were after. And I think they got it. And that's why, law enforcement's like, they wasn't even going to put out a missing, Amber Alert on Summer because they didn't believe she got abducted. I mean, law enforcement was really like, there's no way in hell this kid got abducted. There's no way in hell anybody came up here, took a kid. Look, we got a ton of dogs up here. We had 2 adults outside. We had 3 teenage kids, almost teenagers inside. There's no way. This kid would have been kicking, screaming, carrying on. I mean, whoever it was would have been caught. We got a camera down there, where we, on the end where you go out onto Beach Creek, neighbor's trail cam down there going 90, and nobody was seen coming in. Nobody was seen going out except the people that live in there, like Fred Hill and Laura. Chad Arnold was seen coming in and going out with Candace behind him. It was just the normal people who normally, come in and out of that particular road. And that's why they wasn't wanting to put an Amber Alert out. But you had a lot of pressure. You had a lot of pressure, from society to do it. Why ain't they doing it? They need to be doing it. And you had the parents, pushing that narrative, and law enforcement kind of felt forced. Forced. They pretty much knew it didn't happen, but they have to take everything in consideration, to keep themselves safe. And so they put it out the next day. But I don't think it took them I think by the end of the evening on June 15th, 2021, I think by the end of the evening, they understood, who the number one suspects in Summer's disappearance was. And it was her parents. Because Don Wells was down the road hiding at Fred's house the whole evening. Candace hiding inside the house. You know, and parents that have nothing to hide don't go hiding. If their child really did wander off or they felt it got abducted, they would have been right out there with law enforcement. They would have been standing around. Have you found her yet? Can you hear anything? You know, what's going on? Can you keep me updated? They would have been out in the yard. They'd have been pacing back and forth. You know what I'm saying? The farthest that Don and Candace would have been going was down at the end of their driveway, trying to pull their shit together because, you know, they were too devastated about what happened and can't understand it. And, you know, parents like that, you know, they just keep breaking down. They have to go somewhere where they can just sit down and cry like hell for a minute. And, you know, get themselves together and try to hope for the best, prepare for the worst. And, you know, and people that truly lose somebody the way these guys say they did, they're just not going to be able to function. They're not going to be able to function the way the Wells functioned. I think Candace and Don Wells was able to function because they knew exactly what happened. They were scared. They was trying to cover it up. And that's, you know, that's it. That's my opinion. Yeah, absolutely second to none. And Don and Candace, you know, I think they really should, you know, I really think they should tell the truth for their daughter's sake. Let the little girl be buried. You know, stop going and putting fucking rocks on top of each other to try to make yourself feel better that you're memorializing her. Let her be found and laid to rest properly. Give her that. You didn't ever give her anything else. You didn't ever give any of them kids, from the very first kids they had all the way down to Summer. They didn't ever give those kids a damn thing. At least give this little girl that, right? They need to give her that. Only a sorry ass son of a bitch, an evil one, very evil one, would not let their child be found. You got to be a very special kind of evil to not let your child, your own child, your own blood, be found and laid to rest properly. You got to be a special kind of evil to let your 3 sons live life feeling like it could have been their fault as to what happened to their sister, leaving them in the dark and the unknown, to have all kinds of, you know, mental issues throughout life because of it. You got to be a very evil person to do that. It's unrighteous. It's totally unrighteous. This is before Summer went missing, what this place looked like. Take a look at it. Take a look. Because these are pictures before she went missing. Look at how that garbage is stacked up. I mean, just, you know, overflowing, right? Oh, I don't even think that's a real, that looked like a tote. It didn't even look like a trash can. But look at this place. I mean, who lives like that? There was a sink full of dishes back there, right? There's a sink full of dishes back there. Look at this place. Wires everywhere. Look at that ceiling. And you know, Don's a contractor, right? Don's a contractor. He could have got this work done for pennies. For pennies. He could have had people helping, and they could have had a they could have tore that whole place down and had people help them completely rebuild a nice home. I don't know why not. I mean, they already had the foundation. They already had a foundation. All they had to do was, you know, build upon it again. But, you know, look at this. There's freaking, you know, look at the holes in the floor. Look at the holes. Because the only heat source is in the basement where Don and Candace sleep. That's the only heat source in the house, is where Don and Candace sleeps. And the boys had to rely on the heat coming up through these holes in order to keep them warm, right? And I'm going to tell you, winters can get brutal. They can get brutal down there in Tennessee, right? Winters can really be brutal up there on those hills. And you know, this is the only heat source that these boys had during that time. And, you know, it couldn't have been good. It couldn't have been good. Even the cat looked like it was like, what the hey? But look at this place. There's nothing organized at all. Nothing seems to be organized in the least. Even the window, I believe the window's busted up and taped. The window is actually busted up and taped, right? These kids were so upset. Like on Christmas Eve, they're taking pictures, right? In front of this big Christmas tree with tons of gifts, tons of presents. Like the presents were going up the walls. And on Christmas morning, this is what they ended up with. This is all that Candace felt she wouldn't be able to resell and get monies out of. So they got all the junk, and then and then all the rest of their toys, which was, you know, given to them by churches, donated to them, were sold off, you know, or taken back to the stores that they came from, and, you know, and gift cards gotten, so Candace could spend them, you know, sell them or spend them another way. They probably went across the road to Andy or Jody Sue, or down the road to Fred Heel, you know, for some stuff. And the kids, you know, these kids didn't get anything, right? Oh yeah, exactly, Bridget. Summer was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. If she'd have been any other person's child, I think she would have really succeeded in life. I think all these kids would have. I think if anyone would have took them, you know, at birth, they would have really succeeded in life. There they are. There they are. You know, that was their, you know, that was their dinner. Boy, that looks bad. That looks bad. You know, just saying, that really looks bad. I don't know what's on there on that plate, but it don't look too good. And that's little Summer. She wanted to be a princess, right? Like every little girl, she wanted to be a princess. This is after they came, and, you know, law enforcement came. Actually, the place looked a little more picked up, right? Place looked a little more picked up after they knew law enforcement's going to be on them. And it still looked like hell. Look at that. Look at the dogs. Look at the dogs. I don't believe anybody came up there and got Summer. That's, that's my opinion. And look at that. Look at that window taped up there. I mean, they bust the window. They just tape it up instead of getting a new one. Actually, it wouldn't cost nothing. It wouldn't cost hardly nothing to take that window out and, and run it to be fixed and brought back. Pennies on the dollar to get that, that window. You could have took the whole window out for like probably a couple $100. You could have took the whole entire window out and put a brand new one in. But, to just replace, just take that one piece out, get it replaced would have been, probably maybe $60, $70 at the most, at the most. This is after law enforcement came in there. Wow. I'm going to tell you something. I got a feeling this is what law enforcement saw when they came in. And a lot of this stuff right here is stuff people were bringing. Once Summer went missing, there was a lot of people coming with boxes of food and toilet papers and paper towels, and a lot of people were bringing a lot of stuff. And then Candace was getting tons of money rolling in, so her and Don was, out also shopping and bringing, a lot of stuff in from the dollar stores and stuff as well, right? And that was supposed to be that's supposed to be Summer's bedroom. This is supposed to be Summer's bedroom right here. No ceiling. Don does drywall, but yet the baby ain't got no ceiling in there. And Don can paint. Candace can paint. If you can do drywall, you can paint. Nobody painted it. Nobody painted it real pretty. I mean, if this is all you got, I understand. I understand, hard times. I definitely understand hard times. Like I said, after my husband passed away, me and my kids, we were in the tiniest apartment. Like, it was super small, right? And it's all we could afford. All we could afford. We had to cut corners and everything else, and to get back on our feet. It costs a lot of money when people have cancer. People have cancer. It can really take your bank account down in no time. It can really clean you out. And so I know about hard times, but I also know about keeping a place clean. I also know about, making it a cheerful place. At the apartment, I wasn't able to stencil, like, SpongeBob SquarePants on the wall, or, the no Minecraft or anything on the walls. But, I could, hang up, posters and other things to, to make it look really nice, a boy's room, something that would make my kids comfortable, that they would, like being in and being around, something cheerful. you know, I was able to repaint and, you know, um, do an accent wall, right? Do an accent wall um, in the living room and, you know, dining area. And you can make it very, you know, it ain't what you got, is what you turn it into that counts. And you can make anything beautiful. And Don and Candace, they could have put a ceiling in there. They could have painted that room right there, you know. They could have made it like a big, you know, like big block. They could have painted one wall orange, another one, you know, um, blue, another one, you know, a different color. They could have maybe yellow. You know, they could have painted it to where, you know, it looked cheerful and childish and, you know, fun for the kids. And they could have had, you know, I'm sure a little twin bed would have fit really nice there with a little nightstand, right? With a little nightstand down where they had those other awful looking beds. Those could have been trashed and a little dresser put down there, or maybe a you know, Don being a working with people, you know, that's into that field. They could have built, you know, summer a closet. They could have built her a real nice closet down there that, you know, could hang up her little clothes, keep her little toys, place for all her little shoes. They could have made this a really beautiful space. If this is all she had, they could have turned it into something beautiful for her, right? But they did look at it. They wasn't, you know, they wasn't trying to make anything for this particular child. Andrew, I'm not going to play with you tonight. I'm not going to play with you tonight. Um, to be honest with you, uh, I'm tired. I'm tired of being your friend, and I don't want, you know, and I don't want to play with you no more. So you're going to have to go over to your channel and play with your, you know, with yourself or something, because I don't want to play with you no more. I don't want to be your friend. So you might as well just get out of the backstage and leave PG alone, because tonight I'm focusing on Summer. I'm focusing on what we can do to help her and bring her home. And, you know, maybe you want to go to your channel and focus on helping a child, you know, instead of being out here causing issues and problems and being so evil and mean. Why don't you try opening up a live and asking people to remember the Idaho 4, you know, who were destroyed by a real monster that, you know, brutally destroyed them. Why don't you ask people to pray for their families, because tomorrow's a big day for them. And you could do that. Or you know, you might want to think about, you know, talking about, you know, Jack and Lily, who still need to be found, brought home, some justice served up for those two babies. Or you could talk about, you know, you could talk about Summer and show her picture out and ask if anyone, you know, has any information. Please let law enforcement know she's still missing and we need all the help we can get to find her. Why don't you do something productive instead of destructive? Why don't you do that? But I don't want to play with you no more. I'm tired of you. And you can go tell your little friend, Lisa Kay, that she needs to be doing something productive instead of destructive as well. I don't want to play with her no more either. Right? I'm tired of you guys. I'm tired of you and her. That's a problem I've always had, you know. I don't like to I don't like to I don't like I don't like to play with mean kids in the sandbox, right? I don't like mean kids in the sandbox. And it's actually it's no fun to play with them when you always win, right? When you're always building the best sandcastle. It's no fun playing with them no more. And we done won, right? We done won, so we don't want to play with them now. Anyhow, yeah, thank God the boys are safe. Thank God they are safe. But you know, I think they could have made this a beautiful, cheerful space. You know, they could have put a big closet at the one end of this room where you go out the back door, the basement door there. They could have put a big closet there. Matter of fact, like a wraparound closet, right? And had, you know, like I said, it would have holded all of Summer's clothes. It would have held her shoes. It could have even had some little drawers in it that she could pull out for her hairbreadths, right? And just, you know, her little toys she could put in there, and so forth and so on. Um, her hairbrush and comb and, you know, little mirror, whatever she wanted to keep. You know, they could have made that really beautiful. And right here where this TV is another some more space there. There's some more space there, you know, and they could always, you know, if they did the double like closet type thing, they could have had like a TV shelf. They could have had a closet, like a corner closet type thing built where one part's a closet like that, and then it comes around, and it could have been like, you know, the bottom part with yours, and then a TV, you know, a TV shelf, and then over top of the TV shelf, you know, it could have been extra little shelves, you know, for her baby dolls and things like that. That would have been really nice. And Don Wells, you know, supposedly in the field he was in, he could have had all of that stuff done very cheap. And this basement would have, you know, that would have looked like a real room for a princess if he, you know, if they would have took their money and, you know, invested it into doing good stuff for themselves and their children instead of going down to Fred's and over to Andy's to get shit that they didn't really need, right? They didn't need to be doing a bunch of illegal substances. They needed to be putting the money into this home right here to make their children and themselves a better life. They needed to be putting, you know, a real refrigerator and stove up in the kitchen and filling it up, you know, with good food and so forth. So that, you know, Jody Sue, I tell you, if I was living over on that hill, what Jody Sue would have been hearing, seeing, and smelling, she'd have been smelling some damn good barbecue coming in her direction. She'd have been hearing a lot of fun and laughter over on my hill. She would have been hearing cheerfulness and happiness, and she would have been seeing that her ass wasn't welcomed, nor her old man's ass, right? Because we don't affiliate ourselves with evil human beings like that. That's what they'd have been hearing, seeing, and smelling. And that's the truth. I'd have had a big old freezer. I'd had a big old freezer full of stuff for the winter time. I wouldn't have had to worry about coming off that hill during the winter, other than to pick up some milk and bread and maybe, some miscellaneous stuff. But for the biggest part, my pantries and my freezer and my refrigerator would have been full of everything me and my children needed to survive those winters up there. The Wells kids, I don't know how those kids survived. I have no idea. Yeah, he did say that. He did say that. That she's, yeah. Look at this. That right there's the bed I'm talking about. That thing should have been thrown out. That thing should have been garbaged before it ever came in the house, if you ask me. Don Wells knew how to knock some boards together and make some makeshift ass beds. What he should have done is had his daughter a beautiful closet down here to put all of her things in, her clothes and all of her stuff. She should have had a TV stand down there to hold a TV set for her. This should have really been a beautiful room, and there should have been carpet. There should have been carpet on the floor. Double pad and carpet on that floor for that little girl. But there was none of that, right? They didn't care. They didn't think about it. Look at that mess. And let us remember that right after Summer went missing, let us remember Candace donated all of her stuff, right, to needy children. She donated, and what she didn't donate, she went out and put in a shed. When you take something out and put it in the garage, or you put it in the shed, that means that the next stop is the garbage, right? Because you ain't going to bring that shit back into your house. You're not bringing it back in. You're putting it out there. Most people, like, for myself, I'll put everything, I take everything and put it in the, in the shed or whatever. If I'm going to have a yard sale, right? I'll put it all out there, and then me and my daughter, we'll go out and price it all. And then, the following weekend or whatever, we have a giant yard sale, sometimes it's a big community one. And, and we just let it go, pennies on the dollar. And what doesn't sell, then, it gets put by the garbage, right? It gets put by the garbage, and people, sometimes people will pick it all up. Most of the time they pick it all up. But, it depends on what day it is, and if the garbage men get there before the other people do. So, but once something goes into a shed or garage, the next stop is the garbage can. We all know that. You're just not going to, you're not going to pack that back into your home. You don't want it. It's like, oh my gosh, what could be in it? Type thing. And like I said, if I, there's like a community yard sale thing going on or something, then like I said, I will, that's when I'll take everything I don't want to the shed, price it up, and then take it from there. That the following weekend, take it from there, and put it in the cell, and what, like I said, what doesn't go, just throw it out, because why are you packing it back up? Why are you I ain't packing it back up. It was an opportunity to, um, get rid of a lot of things so you can bring some new things in, right? So you could bring some new stuff in. It was an opportunity to, get rid of a lot of stuff that, that's just laying around the house. Everybody knows how that goes. Your kids, they really want this or they want that, and the next thing you know, that thing's just there, and it's there, and it's there, and you keep saying, I'm going to get rid of that, right? I'm going to get rid of that, and at some point you do. Some point you pack it up and you put it in a yard sale, or you put it in the garbage, and you forget about it. So you can make space. You can make space, with all the waste. I mean, all of us do it. Our kids grow out of the clothes. Our kids, grow out of everything. You get tired of looking at stuff, right? You go out and you pick out stuff, and you get tired of looking at it, or else you bring new stuff in and it don't match. It don't match with the other stuff you got. So you need to, now you're disappointed. So you want to get the stuff that it don't match with out of your home. And we all know what it is. But these guys right here, the day Summer went missing, her stuff was gone. I mean, it was getting donated. I don't think I could do that. I don't think I could do that. The Idaho 4, it was really terrible how their parents got done, right? It was really terrible how their parents were done. I feel so sorry for these families, because they closed up that house, right? They closed up that house as a crime scene, and they wouldn't the parents weren't allowed to go in and get their children's stuff, right? None of their kids' stuff. And, and they don't know what happened to a lot of the stuff, that belonged to their children, and so forth and so on. I mean, what I'm saying is, they wanted memories, right? They wanted memories. And the one girl, that was with Maddie, and maybe it was Maddie's mother. I don't think so. I think it was Kaylee's mother. Kaylee had went out, I think, and bought a sweatshirt, and she was on an open, FaceTime with her mom, and her mom seen this, beautiful sweatshirt she had bought, and she said, "Oh, that's beautiful." And she said the next thing she knew, her daughter grabbed a scissors and started, making the top into like a crop top, and she said, "What are you doing?" And she said her daughter was laughing, and laughing and laughing, because her mom was so surprised that she was altering, the sweatshirt to make it more comfortable, and more teen, more teen and young adult looking. And she just wanted that sweatshirt, and somehow she was able to get it. But she said it was like the only thing she really was able to get her hands on. But she was thanking God, for it, because it was one of the last memories, that she had with her daughter. And that stuff, you don't know how much that stuff means to those families. And they were held back from it. And now they're getting held back from the answers as to why this guy did what he did to these poor innocent people that done nothing at all to him. You know, they're not even going to get that because he decided to take a plea deal to keep from going to trial and to keep from, you know, having to explain some things. And, you know, it was all win. It was all win for Brian and no win at all for the families, right? And that's, you know, that's sad. And it even brought our president of the United States out. Donald Trump came out on this particular case saying, you know, I think the family does deserve answers. I think the judge should make this guy tell why he did it. You know, something is better than nothing. Sometimes anything is better than nothing. And these families right now, they need something, no matter what it is, even if it ain't the truth. They need something. And Donald Trump understands that. And I understand it. But I think it's a shame. You know, I think he was too. I agree with you, Bridget. Absolutely. And you know, I think also that Brian Kohlberg went into that restaurant, the vegan restaurant where Maddie worked, and you know, I think that he might have, you know, been giving her, you know, been tipping her and talking to her and, you know, smiling at her and you know, and she works there, having to pay her bill. You know, this is how she makes her money, by being real nice to people and serving them their food and you know, and she looks forward to those tips. And I think, you know, at some point he may have suggested, you know, so got turned down. At some point he may have, you know, got turned down and then felt used and abused and, you know, and angry, and that, you know, and it just set him off. And that's why you got to be real careful, you know, you got to be real careful when you're working at these places, you know. You got to keep all of these people at, you know, arm length. You got to be, you know, the best suggestion that I can give, you know, a young lady working in a place like that would be maybe to wear a wedding ring. Even if she's not married, wear a wedding ring. So that, you know, you don't attract anyone, right? There's a rule. You don't date your coworkers and you don't date your customers. When you're working somewhere, you don't date customers and you don't date coworkers. You shouldn't ever, you know, you shouldn't ever crap where you eat. If it doesn't work out, it, you know, it makes bad all the way around. It makes your job harder. So, you know, I suggest that, you know, young girls, you know, young adult girls possibly just wear a ring and keep these people, you know, at a distance. It's very dangerous, you know, and these young girls, you know, they seem to get into these, they seem to work at these sports bars and stuff like that, you know. And I can't, you know, say that it ain't really good money, because it is. You know, I did my share of a little bit of everything in my teenage years and young adulthood. You know, I had many different jobs for a while. And, you know, you make really good money when you're working for tips. You make really good money. And, you know, but sometimes it ain't worth it. What you have to endure and go through, you know, for those tips, just sometimes ain't worth it. You've got some very vulgar human beings in this world that, you know, that say just, you know, some of the things they say to you, and some of the things they, you know, they have the audacity to ask you and so forth, you know. You have to put up with a lot. You have to put up with a lot, you know, for what you're doing, especially when you're female. When you're female, it's a lot harder, you know, because men always see themselves as dominant over you. And a lot of times, a lot of men, you know, also feel superior to you, as if they've got some right to speak to you in ways that you know no lady should be spoke to. Some people are just really disrespectful. And a lot of times, you know, a lot of times, them young women end up, you know, end up getting attacked, and you know, bad things happening to them, and sometimes even being on live, you know, like these four was. But I think Brian, you know, possibly had his sights set on Maddie. And, you know, the other girl just was in the wrong place, you know, at the right time. That's, you know, and they said she fought the hardest. They said Kaylee fought the hardest of all of them. I think, you know, I think if he would have encountered them, you know, awake, if he would have, you know, came upon them when they were, you know, awake, I don't think he could have took them, to be honest with you. I think somebody would have gotten out of the house and got, you know, help. But because they were, you know, they'd been out and they were really partied hard, and you know, was really felt safe and passed out, you know, he had the upper hand. He had the advantage, you know. And when he walked into that room, you know, I think he got Maddie first, and that woke up Kaylee. And then Kaylee tried to fight as hard as she could, but didn't win. And then the other girl happened to come in, you know, happened to walk in and see him, and he saw her. And, you know, by the time she realized that, you know, this is a dangerous person, he was already on her and, you know, in the hallway, away from where her boyfriend could really hear or be able to wake up in time to do anything. He had already, and I think he kind of drug her back, you know, back into the room where her boyfriend was. And that's when he got him. And this, you know, they said he even sat down. He even had a seat inside of Xana and Ethan's room. There was a chair in there, and they know that he sat on it. They said that he must have been exhausted by, you know, everything he had done. And that's why they believe that, you know, he didn't continue, um, didn't, you know, get nobody else, because he was just at that point thinking of, you know, getting out of there. And the one girl had, you know, opened the door and seen him, and they said that they believe he didn't see her, that he was, you know, exhausted, wore out, had, you know, all of that head stuff on, you know, kind of like blinders, looking straight front of him. And his mind was focused on going, you know, straight out the way he came in. And that's exactly what he did. What I don't understand is the other girl that seen him come by and leave, if she was scared enough to run down the basement to sleep with the other girl who, you know, finally answered the phone, I would think that she would have been afraid enough to call 911 and get law enforcement out there to see, you know, who this guy was that just went out the door, because she don't know, you know. And especially if I came out to go, you know, if I came out of my room to go down to sleep with somebody else because I was scared, you know, and seen and looked down the hallway and saw, you know, one of my roommates laying on the floor like that instead of being in their bed, I would have definitely been calling 911. I'd have definitely, you know, been calling law enforcement saying, hey, you know, there was some guy all in, you know, all dressed in black, and his whole face, ski mask and everything, went by and out the door. And um I can't get a hold of none of the other people in the house. You know, I tried calling them. I couldn't get a hold of none of them. I'm down in the basement, you know, with the only one I could get a hold of. And as I was running down here, my roommate was on the floor. I'm not sure, you know, if something went down or it didn't, but I think you need to come out and look, because I don't want to do it, right? I'm scared. I mean, he may have went out and, you know, was coming back, right? He might have went out and was coming back. So you need to come. But she didn't call 911. She didn't call nobody after seeing, you know, such a strange sight. She didn't call nobody. That just seems really suspicious to me. I mean, you know, it's just not something I think the normal, you know, the average normal person would have done, right? I was young once too. And I think that, you know, if I would have seen that, I'd have been calling 911, right? I'd have definitely been on the phone, you know, with law enforcement. I don't even think I would have came out and ran down to somebody else's room. I think I'd have barricaded myself in the room I was in and called law enforcement, and I wouldn't have came out till they got there. They would have had to get me out. That's just my opinion. I wouldn't even had to see my roommate on the floor. Just seeing that guy would have been enough for me. I have a theory about that, actually. What do you think, Jessica? What do you think? You know, I found it funny that Brian Kohlberger said, have you arrested anyone else yet? Did you find it funny that he asked that? Have you arrested anyone else? Didn't you find that odd that he made that statement? That's what I'm saying, second to none, right? That, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I don't know. She's like, when I saw my roommate on the floor, I just thought she was, intoxicated. I don't think so. I mean, had she ever seen her roommate laying on the floor like that before? I don't think she did. I don't think she's ever, seen that before. So why would she believe that? And, here's my thing. If she thought that her roommate's just intoxicated, then why didn't she go down there and look? Why didn't she go to the room, to, Xana's room and look? Don't you think that you would go look? Seeing that, seeing a lot of people get, you know, alcohol poisoning, right? There's a lot of people, pass away with alcohol poisoning and so forth. And, wouldn't you want to go check? Wouldn't you want to go check on your roommate to, say, hey, are you okay? Do I need to call a squad, get you some help, because that stuff can put a person into a coma, and then they pass away. Or sometimes, they'll vomit, and pass away that way. Also, they end up, you know, filling the airway and choke, basically, smothering to death on their own vomit because it ain't coming out. That's why, they tell you if someone's intoxicated, make sure you turn them on their side in case, in case they throw up. It, it won't, they won't choke to death on it. So why didn't she go to help her roommate? I mean, what was the problem? Oh, really, Stephanie? There was pictures of them holding. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I heard that she was kind of new to the house compared to the other roommates. Also, she was, yeah, I'm sure she was. And I heard maybe, yeah, that's a very good possibility, right? And those two things always go hand in hand. And maybe was second guessing herself and didn't want to be embarrassed if she was wrong by calling the police. Um, I don't know. I mean, you're calling your roommates. You got 4 other people in the house, and you're calling all of them, and you're saying, "Please pick up, please pick up." She's saying, in the voicemail of these victims, she's saying, "Please, please pick up, please pick up." That sounds kind of staged to me. I mean, that's my opinion. That it sounds kind of staged, right? I mean, if you're in that much fear and you're begging your roommates to please pick up and no one is, and no one is, and you come out and you see one down there on the floor, and you're too scared to go look and see what's wrong, why would you not call 911? I don't care how new I am to a place. If I see all that stuff, I'm calling the police, right? I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna tell you something. They ain't no superhero is gonna have faster superpowers than PG hitting 911. And I tell you what, and they wouldn't be able to talk as fast as me and letting them know the address and everything. Because man, when you call 911, the first thing you do is let them know, the address right now. Don't be talking anything but the address first. You make sure they got that address down. Because if they don't got that address down and something goes down, well, they don't know where to come. They don't know where to come to. They're going to have to try to start pinging off of, where the phone call came pinging from. So you always, first and above all, make sure that operator has the address. Then you give your name, and then you start to describe what's going on, right? Because you want law enforcement to be on the way while you're giving the operator the rest of the information, and you'd be like, and when the operator says, oh, law enforcement's on their way, they should be there. You say, hey, you need to stay on this line with me till they get here, lady. Don't hang up. Don't hang up. Something goes down, I want witnesses, right? I want somebody hearing what's going down. I'm going to tell you, there's no way with all of that. Like they said that Kaylee, they said Kaylee really fought the crap up out of him. And I'm going to tell you now, that there was a lot of screaming going on. There's no way in hell you didn't hear that. Because, and Xana, they said you could hear Xana scream all the way outside off of someone else's ring camera. Someone had a ring camera. And they said on that camera, you could hear Xana scream. So, really? She was, she was right there. And her room was right below. Her room was right below Maddie and her friend, Kaylee. Kaylee and Maddie was right above this girl that was calling the other girl in the basement to come down there. And Xana's room and her boyfriend was straight down the hall on the same floor, just down the hall. They were actually on the same floor. So, and from my understanding, Xana was really screaming. So how did she not hear none of this? I think she told law enforcement that she had earbuds on and was listening to music. At 4 something in the morning, you got earbuds in listening to music. Put a 1 in the chat. Put a 1 in the chat if you think that's BS. 4 something in the morning, you got earbuds. You've been partying all night. You've been going all day partying, and it's 4 something in the morning, you got earbuds on, listening to music. I think that's BS. I think if it's 4 something in the morning, your ass is super tired. You're wanting to go to sleep, and you just can't sleep with earbuds. Yeah, I mean, with noise like that, you got to take them. You got to take them out and It's like trying to sleep with, trying to sleep with your sunglasses on, right? You can't, you can't rest with your sunglasses on. You got to take them off. If you got your hair up, you got your hair up in a ponytail, you gotta, when you get ready to go to bed, you pull that ponytail out, right? You take that hairbread out and you sling your, your hair tie. You sling it somewhere. You're like, ain't no way. Because it's hard to rest with, with that hair tie in your hair. It's hard to rest with them sunglasses on your face. And it's hard to rest, with noise in your ears. It's like playing a TV set. Yeah, you have earbuds now because you're engaging in, in this particular episode, tonight. You're engaging in all of this. But as soon as, we go out of here, the end of the night, we go out of here, and you're not just going to leave the earbuds in your ears and go to sleep, are you? You're probably going to take them out, and lay them beside your computer, and probably go get yourself something to eat or drink, and, make yourself comfortable, and probably, go to bed. I make it a habit of only using one earbud. If I go out jogging, I put, and I want to listen to music, I put one earbud in my ear. And, so I can hear, if a horn blows, or if a dog starts barking and, and going to gain some ground on me, I don't know if I'm going to have to climb up on somebody's vehicle, wouldn't be the first time, but, to try to keep some dog from, taking a bite, out of your life. But, I always, or somebody hollers or something at you, I always make sure, to wear only one. I don't wear both. I don't even wear both of them inside my house. I just use one. Because I need to, I need to be able to hear. I fall asleep with Christian music. I heard that. I only put one because you don't ever know. You don't ever know what's going on. And, and my little girl, that's a different story, baby. She got to the point that, she'd have hers in, and she likes to put them both in. And, she's just, doing this two-step all over the house, right? That child, I've seen her at the bottom of the stairs, doing some kind of dance where she, she backs up, goes up one step, comes back down, backs up, spins around, does some stuff, and I think she went up the stairs, and next thing I know, she's dancing back, back down, and she does some stuff. And then she'd be all, finally she'd go all the way up the staircase, and she's up there, doing, I don't know how long it's going to take her to get to her room with whatever she's listening to. That's got her, breaking it down like that. I don't know. But, and you talk to her, you know, because I want to tell her, don't be messing around on the stairs. You could get hurt, right? She can't hear a thing I say. She can't hear a damn thing. She just going, you know, she's just, like I said, move it to the left, move it to the right, you know, backing it up, going for, I don't know. But, you know, and she don't hear nothing I got to say. So I'm going to tell you, I caught her coming around, you know, from the kitchen, and I popped one of them out of her ear. I just got a hold of it and pulled it out. And, you know, she stopped. And then she turned around. And she said, "What'd you do that for?" I said, "Because I've been hollering at you for like 5 minutes and you didn't hear a thing I said. You didn't even know I was standing here. You know, you all wrapped up in yourself and that whatever's on there." And I told her, I said, "You're lucky, you know, that I wasn't something you didn't want to see. You didn't see it. You didn't hear anything. I mean, you just, you know, you're in your own world or something." And I told her, I said, "That's dangerous. And if I catch you with 2 earbuds in your ears anymore, well, they're going to be taken away completely and you can just listen to your music, you know, in the air. Because I'm not going to allow you to have no earbuds no more." So now she walks around with one. She gets one in her ear. And that's it. It's really dangerous. It's really dangerous to put those in your ears and, you know, not know what's going on around you. That's insane. It's insane. I don't know why people do it, but it's insane. You ain't going to hear somebody running up on you. You're not going to hear somebody running up on you if you got those things in your ears and can't, you know, you're not paying attention to your surroundings and you can't hear, you know, as well. That's don't make no sense to me. I would think people would value their life a lot more than this. That's, you know, my opinion. But the Idaho 4, you know, I just can't believe that, you know, I can't believe that she didn't hear anything. I can't believe that the girl down in the basement didn't hear anything. But I would be more, you know, subject to believe the girl in the basement didn't. I mean, you know, I wouldn't know if she did or she didn't, because, you know, that's pretty far away. She was way down there. You know, the other girl saying that she didn't hear, she was right below the one that was really fighting, and she was, you know, right down the hall from the other one that was screaming and seemed to be fighting too. So, you know, and then Kohlberger saying, "Have you arrested anyone else?" got me to thinking, you know, that there was somebody else. I think that's his way of saying, you know, this wasn't a one-man job. That he had help, you know, that he had help. I don't know. That's just my opinion. But look at that mattress. Look at that mattress. You know, this ain't got nothing to do with law enforcement. coming in and going through their house, you know. I don't care if law enforcement came in there 100 times. This has nothing to do with law enforcement. I mean, this is just, you know, this is how it was before Summer ever went missing. Look at that. Oh my goodness. I can't even believe they set that out there for people to get a picture of, right? Where is Don and Candace's embarrassment? Ain't they embarrassed of anything? I mean, where's their shame and their embarrassment? I'd be ashamed to let someone see this. Right? Right? Second, I don't think Ali should have took that mattress. I think I think law enforcement should have took Don and Candace's sheets off of their bed, and I think they should have took their mattress and tested Don's side in the middle where Summer was. That's what I think. I think if they'd have tested that, they'd have found some stuff they didn't want to find. This place was just a nightmare. And they didn't waste no time getting rid of all those kids' stuff, did they? They didn't waste no time getting rid of everything that belonged to them kids. Look at this place. It was like a junkyard. It's like a mother freaking junkyard for junk. I mean, who wants this stuff around? Right? They could have sold all of that trash there, all them cars and everything. They could have sold all of that, you know, that scrap metal, and put it into buying some decent beds for those kids, some decent mattresses. You know, they could have done more for these kids. They didn't want to. They didn't want to do nothing for their children. And you know, it's sad. It's sad that you've got weird people out here saying, "Oh, this is just country life," and those kids need to go back there and continue to live in that trash. Right? Continue to be treated like this. What is wrong with people? What is wrong with them? I don't even know. I don't even know. I wouldn't wish my worst enemy upon this place. And that's the truth. Yeah, Tim Mullins, exactly. I mean, that guy really advocating to get those little boys back, which is really freaking weird to me. You know, why does he care? Why does he care about those boys getting put back into that hellhole? Why does he care so much? That's just freaking, beyond me. What dog does he have in this race? What dog does he have in the race that he would want to see those boys returned to this type of, of living? I don't understand it. I really don't understand it. I mean, I don't think, if it's such a good living, why don't Tim Mullins go up there and move in with the Wells? Why doesn't he go up there and eat off of, Pepe Le Pew's plate that Candace is feeding Pepe Le Pew out of outside? Right? Why don't he go up there and have a dollar store pizza, $1 store pizza a day, and drink some water, and sleep on those good old, dirty sheets. Why doesn't he, go up there and, wear not bath for months at a time and wear the same clothes, till they can stand up in the corner all by themselves? Right? Why doesn't he go live there? Why would you want children to go to a place that you wouldn't want to stay at yourself? Why would you want children return to a place that you don't want to be in? There's no way in hell you would stay there. Why would you want children to do it? Yeah, they did. That's true. That's true, Sunshine. Absolutely. I don't understand it. I mean, look at this place. It's a pigsty. The place is a pigsty. I don't care what anybody says. It's horrible. It's horrible. It's trashy and it's nasty. And I feel that it is, a danger. I feel that it is, a risk and a danger to them children. This place, a lot of the buildings on that land, these sheds got dangerous stuff inside of them. The shed itself's dangerous. I mean, it could fall any minute. It's just, it's hazardous. It's hazardous to any children. Nobody should be up there around all of this, this stuff that can be very harmful to their health. I don't understand it. And I don't think Tim wants to hang out there either. That's my opinion. I think this is the saddest picture of all, right? I think this is the saddest picture of all that's left, that's left behind from June 15th, 2021. It's the saddest one of all. It's her little swing hanging out there all alone. Just hanging in the wind, right? Her favoriteest little place, the only place she really had, the only place she could really call hers, just hanging in the balance. Extended. It's extended between heaven and earth, right? God bless that little girl. God bless her. And Grandis's place wasn't no better. These people act like they were, they act like they were Mr. Clean, right? They act like they were Mr. Clean. And they weren't Mr. Cleans at all, right? And even Candace's daughter, even her daughter came out and was like, I was adopted at 6 months, put back into foster care at the age of 12 with my brother. Same name as bio father. I was told my bio mom was, on this stuff and abused us as babies. This girl, was told her back history about, how bad Candace was and why they were taken. And, and the girl just don't want nothing to do with Candace, right? Candace and her mother both try to reach out to this girl. I think I heard, I don't know how true it is, but I heard that this particular young lady told grandma that if she didn't quit coming around her work and coming around, her trying to come around her all the time that she was going to get a restraining order against Grandma. You know, she told Grandma, I want nothing to do with you or my mother. Stay away from me. You know, yeah, I thought that was really weird too, Miss Justice. You know, I thought that was, you know, really strange as well. But, you know, little Summer's missing, and Candace, you know, was out here gaslighting the hell out of everybody when the real Candace was right here. She was right here partying up, right? She wanted to party with Benny. She wanted to party with the other guy, Ernie Shell. You know, she wanted to party with, you know, all these people, like she partied with them young boys and all those weirdos before, you know. Summer went missing, and, you know, afterwards she just wanted to party with all these people, her and her mother, you know, not just her. Right there's her and her mother. Does Candace look like she got a missing kid right there? No. Look at her, big grin on her face, the big smile on her face. I mean, you know, the first time that, in right here, you know, this is some fake shit right here. Robin looks more distraught than Grandis or Candace. Look at Robin. Robin is just, she's just broke down. She just broke down. I don't know what exactly is going on, but she's broke down crying over a child that isn't even hers, right? I mean, you know, this child wasn't even her child. But look at Candace. Candace standing there dry-eyed as hell. Grandma standing there dry-eyed as hell. Even the other woman here that's biting her lip is, you know, even she's more broke down than the other two. Unbelievable, right? Unbelievable. Look at them. When I see this, I see pure evilness. Pure evilness. And that middle picture right there, Grandma just looked like she's trying to think about it too hard, right? She just, you know, she's thinking too damn hard for me. You shouldn't have to think that hard when you're telling the truth. And it's the truth. Candace and Grandis were the two main humans with Summer on June 15, 2021. Candace, Hunter, and Summer was on video at the horse pond, but not Grandis. Why? Because Grandis stayed in the car. I truly believe, you know, Hunter said Grandis stayed in the vehicle. And I truly believe that, right? I think she did. She didn't want to go down to that swimming hole. I think Grandma knew exactly what was going down that day. They were already prepared for it, right? Hey, Jimmy, I appreciate that. I appreciate it. God bless. When talking with the news, Grandis, you know, said she was at the top of the hill hoping no one abducts the boys too. She was already shooting a narrative that she had no idea existed. She had no idea someone abducted, you know, Summer. Because, you know, when you can't find a child, you just assume that it's around there somewhere. That is, you know, somewhere pretty close. You know, you're going to find it. you know, you don't, give up hope that quick unless you know what happened and you're pushing a narrative, a way that you want law enforcement to go so that they don't, so they don't focus on you. That's just my opinion. And they all, they was all shooting for the same narrative, which, allows you to know that they all corresponded together beforehand. Beforehand, they done worked it out, what they all was going to, join hands and say. Because everybody doesn't say the same thing unless they're coerced. Something happened, you're going to have different emotions. Some's going to think she wandered off. We're going to find her. She's here. Stop worrying. And then you're going to have, maybe another one or somebody saying, fearing the worst, that somebody did take her. You're not going to have, everyone, all aligning with each other like that, unless it was coerced beforehand. That's what I'm saying. It just, all the evidence points. There you go. There you go. Who you guys talking about? Hey, ladies, I see what's going on in the chat. There was a lot of people. There was a lot of people that did not know that, that Mama Bear shouldn't have been streaming like that. There's a lot of people, a lot of people showed up there, because they were not notified that they shouldn't. And, on this channel over here, we let people go wherever they want. And if they want to come back here, they're more than welcome. They're more than welcome. Always accepted, always treated with the utmost love, kindness, and respect. I don't tell anyone where they can go and not go. And I know my mods, don't get me wrong, my mods are beautiful, absolutely beautiful. They're very good people, Lady Q, and they are very protective over PG. And I'm protective over them. I'm very protective over them too, and everyone else in here, all of Summer's Army. I'm protective over all of you guys. But, everyone's free to go where they want to, and if they want to come back in here, they're very much welcomed. I don't know. I don't know why. I think they misunderstand, Lady Q, that, you know, um, they, they, they don't understand that, you know, that you had no idea that that wasn't supposed to be going on. You had no idea, you know, what was going down. And they're very protective over me. And, you know, and you're not at fault for anything. And I know that. I know that. And, you know, I don't know why this conversation's going on in the chat, but, um, you know, I have no idea, but it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. Because I know that, you know, you had nothing to do with anything. You're innocent. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry that this happened. I mean, I know I'm not at fault for it. I just took note of what was going on. But, you know, I'm sorry that, you know, this has went on. And, you know, I hope you're able to accept that apology and, you know, and hug it out at the end of the night. This should not have happened. But, you know, there was a lot of people, you know, under Mama Bear came in here, played up to Summer's Army like she was a friend to us. And you know, and she misled a lot of people. And that's not the people's fault. It's not the people's fault. It's Mama Bear's fault for doing what she done. She should not have did it. And that's why, you know, that's why most creators really don't want other creators in their chat. Because, you know, this is the kind of stuff that goes on. You know, they come in, they want to try to act, you know, all friend up, and they're not friend at all. They're a foe. And they're just in there to cause trouble and get trouble started. And, you know, get everybody at odds. They're the devil. And, you know, I should have, you know, I should have blocked her. I should have blocked her early on. I should have blocked her early on. You know, I take that responsibility upon myself. But, you know, we are a family here. Let's not fight. Let's not fight. Let's not, you know, let's not rechannel our aggression on, you know, on innocent people who were just misled by an evil source that came in here portraying to be, you know, kind and nice when they weren't kind and nice at all. They were actually evil, you know, and are not welcomed in here again, ever, ever. No, you have not ever disrespected me any way, form, or how, Lady Q. Actually, you've always been kind and caring and loving, and I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I have not ever seen you ever, you know, anywhere doing anything, you know, against me at all. I got to say that. And I'm sorry, you know, I'm sorry that this happened. You know, I understand, you know, the frustrations of my mods after the other night and everything that happened. But, you know, it's nobody's fault except the evil person that came in here, you know, as I said, portraying to be kind, and they weren't at all. They misled a lot of people, and it was wrong. And it was wrong. And they even tried to, you know, set and gaslight people and put words in PG's mouth saying that I said it was okay. No, I didn't. And everyone in this chat knows that I didn't say that that could be done. I didn't even know about it until it was already happening. So, you know, that was just, you know, it was just an evil thing. Some people, you know, like the Wells, they feel that they've got a right to, you know, to overpower people and try to, you know, mislead people in ways that people shouldn't be misled. I mean, the Wells are those type of people, you know, that if you go around them, they think they own you. And they think that, you know, they can gaslight you with their bullshit and lead you down the wrong way and do, you know, they're overbearing. They try to put words in people's mouths that people didn't say. And they think just because they breathed it, it made it true. And it didn't. Well, you got a lot of people like that, you know, out here as well. And that, you know, and that mama bear is one of them. So, you know, got to be very careful. You know, you're supposed to, you know, be, you know, as caring and loving as a dove, but as wise as a serpent, right? Don't be like a serpent. Be like the dove, but be as wise. Know those serpents when you see them, so that you know, so that you don't fall prey to it. You don't want to get bit. You don't want to get bit, you guys. And I'm sorry, you know, I'm sorry that all of this stuff is, you know, has corresponded and so forth and so on, but I can't go back. I can't go back and change what's already done. I can just, you know, apologize that, you know, that we had, you know, that we opened the door to that type of evilness. Sometimes, you know, would we open the door? Would we open the door again? Not to that particular evilness, right? But, you know, we do open the door, and we do give people opportunities to, you know, to change and become kind and caring like all of us. We always open the door. And if the person, you know, we find out that they're not, you know, that they're not kind and caring, and they're actually, you know, they're a snake, then, you know, then we got to do what we did this time. We got to, you know, give them a boot and move on. But we can't close the door. We can't close the door to opportunity for, you know, others to come in and have a safe place to get away from all the, you know, all the evilness that they don't want to put up with no more. We'll always have the door open, right? Because that's who we are. We'll always give everybody a chance to come over here and, fly high and be a dove. Hopefully they're not a snake. But we can't take it out on each other. Right? We're a family. We work together. If if some of us get misled, it's up to the rest to bring them home. It's up to the rest of us to bring them back, bring them home. Not to be mean and try to run them off. You want to bring them home. That's what God wants us to do. That's what, that's how I live my life. Oh yeah, Carrie has been a real beautiful supporter for Summer Moon Utah Wells. Absolutely. She's a good mod, an excellent mod. I've got many beautiful mods over here. I've got a lot of good mods. Absolutely. I'm trying to figure out what's going on with Carrie. I'm going to tell you, sometimes apologizing is the hardest thing a human can do, right? Man, I used to hate it. I used to hate I'd rather eat dirt than apologize, right? I used to be like that. Nobody's getting no apologies out of me. I wasn't sorry for nothing. But when I finally got baptized and saved, I came up out of that water, my eyes open, and I didn't even know that person I used to be. I didn't even, I was like, whoa. I didn't even know that person. It was really weird. It was actually, it's kind of, to think about it, it's kind of scary. It's like something left you. Like something, something really bad. It was so bad you couldn't believe it was you. Left you. And I'm going to tell you, I also, had a real bad problem. I didn't like to say, I love you. I thought that, if you show your emotions, it made you weak. Right? You don't ever show your emotions. You got to be hard. Or at least, put on a persona like you was. And I'm going to tell you something. Biggest mistake a human could ever make is walking around like that. You should tell the people you're around that you love them. You should tell the people how much you care. You should share your kindness, your love, your caring with others. You should be a support for everybody, not somebody. You should be big enough to apologize if you need to apologize. None of us are perfect. None of us. We're all going to be wrong at one point or another. And it takes a lot bigger person to apologize than one that don't. It takes a lot bigger person to show people how much they love and care about them than a person that don't. Always be the bigger person. That's what God wants you to be. You'll have a lot better life too. And you'll have a lot more. See, when you tell people how much you love them, because everybody wants to be loved. Well, when you tell people how much you love them, they don't forget it. And they let you know how much they love you too. And you'll have people there for you that you may not ever thought you would. But they are. Right? But they are. Because you done something a lot of other people are afraid or won't do. You said it. You said it. You let their ears hear it. Their eyes see it. Their heart feel it. That's a good thing. So God bless. God bless us all. Let's not let one person divide this family here. Let's not let one evil human divide us. You know, we weren't divided before they came around, and let's not be divided now. God be with us all, right? But I'm going to get out of here. I had more that I wanted to talk about. I wanted to share out here tonight. I really wanted to talk about some things, you know, some real weird stuff that, you know, went on after Summer went missing with Allison and her mother and, you know, all of these people, you know. But I'm gonna save that. I'm gonna save that, you know, for tomorrow night, because I gotta, for one, there's a lot of us have to get up in the morning for work. MPG's been burning the candle at both ends, right? I've been in here nonstop for a while, and I, you know, I'm not gonna lie, I'm very tired. I'm very tired, you guys. But I wanted to come in tonight, you know, I wanted to come in and discuss, you know, why Don was saying that. And I believe that Don Wells wanted to gaslight us into believing that, you know, law enforcement kept tearing their house up and tearing their house up, like, you know, they're not finding nothing, you know, we're innocent. He was gaslighting you to believe some bullshit. He thought by telling you that, you know, it's going to make you feel, you know, gaslight you into feeling like, you know, law enforcement came in 50 times and still can't get nothing. And no, they came in 50 times to get that timeline down. They came in 50 times to, you know, for Candace to talk about the timeline from the time that video was taken to the time they, you know, they actually called law enforcement at 6:20 something. And, you know, and she gave them, you know, a lot of crap. She gave them a lot of crap, a whole bunch of BS that they truly didn't believe. And, you know, and then she kept adding, like I said, she was adding stuff onto it, like they knew she would if they pressured her. And, you know, to show that it was not true to begin with. And they got what they, you know, they pretty much got what they were seeking. That these mother freakers right here, you know, are guilty as hell. And #1 suspects. And these boys need to get took out of here, because we got one child missing. they're the number one suspects, and we can't have 2 children or 3 children or maybe all missing if we risk leaving them here. And that's the truth. You know, that's my opinion as well. So Don thought that he could gaslight everybody up, like, you know, law enforcement ain't getting nothing from, you know, from them. And it wasn't true. It wasn't true. They were going back up there many times, yes. That was to talk to Candace, trying to get information on that timeline. I think law enforcement, when Ronnie Lawson told that lady to ask, she said, do you want me to have the YouTubers ask Don and Candace anything? And they said yes. He said, yeah, ask them what took 4.5 hours to call law enforcement. Well, you know, that goes all the way back. That goes all the way back, you know, damn near to the swimming hole. You know, when Summer ended up on the wet pillow, laying against the driver's side door, not being seen anywhere with any movement after that. So I think law enforcement, you know, knows that Summer didn't get out of that car. She didn't ever get out. Those boys got gaslighted up. The boys kept saying, you know, Sissy was outside. We saw Sissy outside, you know, she's on the swing. We thought she's on the swing because they didn't ever see her come in the house. See, Don Wells said that that his son said Summer had asked her to go to the basement. And he felt so, you know, so guilty. But the boy didn't say that. Don did. All the boys agreed that Summer was outside. That they didn't even ever see her in the house. They told the flute player, we thought she was out to swing. They told Jody Sue, we thought she's out at the swing. Right? She didn't ever get out of the car. There was no, you know, planting flowers. There was no, none of that shit. There was no planting the flowers, no getting candy, no washing hands. There was none of that happened. That was a bunch of made up bullshit to try to fit in, you know, fit in the time that Candace, you know, wasted gaslighting the boys up when they came out to get the groceries, went in to get, because they were so hungry to, you know, demolish them. And I bet she went in acting like, you know, Summer was in there when Summer wasn't. And then she went back out and, you know, and stood out there talking to her mom until Marlena called. And when Marlena, you know, the phone call with Marlena took place, then she came off the hill, went down there and met up with Chad Arnold. And then she follows Chad out of Ben Hill onto Beach Creek. And she was gone until she got back to gaslight the shit out of the boys, you know, about where's your sister now? You know, yeah, I did send her in here. I told you specifically to watch her, you know, this certain boy that she probably didn't like because he was, you know, better looking than she was too. And I find that funny too, because the one boy that she said that she told that, you know, she was telling people that the one she tried to gaslight up into believing that she told him to watch Summer, called his particular name. And that's the same one that almost didn't make it and had just barely got to the hospital in time for, you know, some really suspicious stuff, you know. Just saying, you know. So it's a very good possibility that she could have been, you know, jealous of him as well. Because, you know, some stuff with him just didn't sound right where his medical records was concerned. You know, didn't sound right. It should have been further looked into, in my opinion. Maybe Summer still be here. But I think that it was an emergency situation and the doctors really just, you know, was so, too busy trying to save his life and not really paying attention to, you know, to anything else. That's my opinion. So I think Don wasn't just, you know, putting Summer through stuff, if you ask me. And because he personally told me that his boys were like Candace. They didn't want a bath at all. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them. Would you want to? Would you want to bath in that house? Hell no. Hell no. You didn't feel safe. The only way you felt safe in that house was keeping your clothes on. Probably, you know, using the clothesline to tie, you know, to tie your breeches around your waist in 50 knots so they couldn't get took off, right? Just my thought, my opinion. And that's right. Tomorrow's not promised. Nobody owns tomorrow. Nobody owns tomorrow but God. He's already there. God goes before you. Jesus goes with you. The angels watch over your girlfriend. God already knows. He done went and he done made a way. And the only choice we got is if God blesses us into tomorrow is to do better than we done today. Try to do, you know, try to do his will instead of our own, right? It's not easy. It's a job. It's a job being good. It's a real job being good. And that's why you know, you get paid. You get paid at the end of this with a white robe and a life of everlasting. A good life of everlasting with God and his, you know, his son, the angels, and all of your loved ones that were able to, you know, to do righteous and make it to glory land as well. But it's a job. It's not hard being mean. It's not hard being evil. It's not hard. It's not hard doing nothing, is it? It ain't hard doing nothing. But it's hard. It's hard doing something, right? But you got to do it. You got to do it. You know, if you want to get, you know, where you're going, you got to do it. You got to pick your destination. You got to pick your destination in this life. You got to pick your destination. And you got to get on that path and you got to go for it. I mean, there's only two destinations. You only got two. You know, you either go up or you go down, right? There's only two. You got to pick which one you want. You got to achieve it. If you want to go up, it's not easy to achieve that one. And that's the hard one. because you got to, you got to get everything the righteous way. You got to work for it. You got to work for everything you get. You got to be good and kind and caring to all the people you meet. You got to, not do no evil. People's got to be safe when they walk in your presence. When they're around you, they got to feel safe. They got to know that you got their back, that you wouldn't ever harm them or do anything to them. And you got to pray they won't do it to you either. Right? It's a lot of work. And it's, a lot of people everybody wants to go to heaven. Nobody wants to do what it takes to get there. That's the problem. And evil is out there to deter you. Evil is all around trying to manipulate and deter you from being on the right path. Let me tell you something. I know one thing about losers, and I know one thing about evil humans. Man, that mother freaking misery loves company. They like being in a cesspool together. They love, knowing that everybody is going to Hades. They love that because they don't want to go by themselves. They don't want to go alone. But they're too ignorant to understand that they can't take nobody else with them. They're just getting themselves in there. Those other people in that cesspool, well, when they see the one or two end up, kicking off and wasn't righteous with God, they wasn't right with God. The others might end up running towards God. They might get right, and they might end up in glory land. And the only one you took to Hades was yourself, right? Because you wanted to be evil, and you wanted to drag other people into evilness, and you got exactly what you was looking for. And you thought that at some point they're going to join you, and they didn't ever show up because they were smart enough to get out of there and get on the righteous road to glory. Don't pay to be evil, man. I don't want to be evil. I don't like it. Don't want to be there. Anyway, PG's going to get out of here, but not before I ask you, please, please, please pray for this little girl. Pray for Summer Moon Utah Wells. Pray for this baby. Pray that God lets her be found. Pray that he brings her home and he lets justice be served, that he allows the evil people that were evil enough to do such a thing to an innocent little child, maybe others as well. Let us pray that this baby's case is solved and those evil people get took out of our society so everyone else can be safe, especially children, but everybody, because nobody deserves that type of evil to be able to creep up and creep around them. Amen. Keep the prayers going up for. Pray for the rest of these missing kids too. So many, you guys. Pray for them and pray for the family of the Idaho 4. Pray for those families. They need your prayers more than anything right now. So please remember them as you pray tonight. And remember one another. Remember we are a family and we're going to stay a family. In the name of Jesus. Amen. Good night, everybody. God bless and much love.